The first light after the Battle of the Trident was neither bright nor brave. It seeped through river mist like a guilty confession, painting the reeds a color between bone and bruise. Rhaegar Targaryen sat his warhorse knee-deep in the chill current, silver hair unbound, rubies dulled by slime and dried blood. The visor of his helm hung from a broken strap, knocking softly against the dragon head of his saddle. He tasted copper each time he breathed and felt every blow Robert Baratheon had dealt him, though in the end the great black warhammer lay submerged among the stones, and Robert's own pulse was stilled. Ravens already quarreled above the fort. They questioned the new order in rasping tongues, but no one gathered the courage to answer. Hoofbeats came from the shallows. Sebaristan Zelmi eased his destrier beside the prince, white cloak soaked and stained. "Half our banners hold the opposite bank," the old knight reported, softer than the river song. "Lord Connington has taken the rebel route in hand. The King's Road west is clear." The words hovered. The King's Road. They belonged to another man, the one who ruled from the Red Keep, wrapped in wildfire dreams and the scent of burning flesh. Rhaegar closed his eyes and felt the weight of a father's madness drag at him as surely as his mail. "There can be no road clear enough to outrun memory," he murmured. Sir Barristan bowed in the saddle. "Clear roads are all I can offer, your highness. Memory is yours alone." Rhaegar's hand drifted to the pommel of his sheathed sword. Dawn haze silvered the wet leather like frost. "Find Lord Stark," the prince ordered at last. "See that he is tended." He fought as fiercely for the usurper as any man might, yet when Robert fell his honor forbade another blow. Selmy nodded, though a flicker of unease crossed the lines around his eyes. The King's Guard had been bred to serve one king, one creed, and the change that loomed now asked them to serve Dragonfire in a different shape. "And Lyanna?" he asked, so quietly the river might have spoken. Rhaegar felt heat break through the morning chill, a private summer hidden behind steel. "She is safe in the tower," he said. "Safe and waiting." The truth of it sang in his blood, but truth was fragile in wartime. He would have to carry it carefully to King's Landing, past every whisper of abduction and every northern horn raised in Robert's name. Carry it while convincing the realm that dragons could birth peace instead of flame. The irony tasted bitter. By midday, the battlefield had swallowed its own screams. Men searched for brothers. Mothers' sons floated under lily pads. Broken banners slipped downstream like defeated ghosts. Rhaegar's host built pyres on the west bank for the greatest fallen and dug trenches for the rest. A horn of blackwood sounded 3 times, slow and sorrowful, when Lord Mace Tyrell at last claimed Robert's corpse. The southern lord bent his knee beside the prince, presenting the ruined body with a florid knot of words. Loyalty renewed, treason ended, but his eyes, shrewd as any merchant's, already weighed what price the new reign might pay for Highgarden's help. Evening found Rhaegar outside his pavilion, gazing north where storm clouds piled over the hills. He wondered if storms carried news faster than ravens. Storm's end would wake to morning, Winterfell to rage. In those far keeps young lords would shout for vengeance, and old maesters would caution that dragons were only men. He shivered despite the brazier's glow, because men, not monsters, spilled the most blood. Footsteps rustled the canvas. Arthur Dane emerged, pale cloak rippling. "Letters fly for the capital," the Sword of the Morning said. No reply yet from his grace. Rhaegar met his friend's gaze. There may be none. Aerys does not answer even his own nightmares now. He exhaled. If the city hears first from Tywin Lannister, everything burns. Arthur's silver sword belt jingled as he folded his arms. If Aerys refuses to yield the crown, It will be your hand that must pry it free. I wish it were otherwise. So do I. The prince touched the ruby in his gorget. The stone had cracked where Robert's hammer struck. He liked the flaw. It proved survival. But Raella names me hope in her letters. Elia trusts me with our children. The realm must trust me too, or at least fear me less than what they have known. He smiled without mirth. How does a dragon learn gentleness after such a war? By remembering why he fights, Arthur said. You have never ceased. Night wore on, and in every campfire circle, stories sprouted like mushrooms in damp earth. Old men muttered of Rhaegar the cruel reborn. Young squires dreamed of tournaments under summer banners. Sellswords counted the coins still owed them. Above, the moon rode thin and pale, like the last coin of a beggar king. Rhaegar could not sleep. He walked the battlefield alone, until sparks floated from distant pyres to drown in mist. The silence pressed. At length, he knelt by the river where Robert's final charge had broken. Water lapped at his gauntlets. I did not wish for your death, he told the dark. A shape drifted near. The crushed remnant of a stag banner snagged on a rock. Its black cloth wept dye into the current. Rhaegar freed the torn standard and laid it across a stone, as if covering a fallen friend. He thought of a boy once merry enough to laugh at storms. A boy whose love for Lyanna Stark eclipsed reason. They had not met again until the Trident, where reason drowned altogether. He stood, turned, and found John Connington waiting at the edge of torchlight. You bleed, Connington said. Do I? A gash across your left pauldron. Might need sewing. The Griffin Lord's voice roughened as he added, We all bleed tonight, I think? Rhaegar gave him a weary nod. Tomorrow we ride for King's Landing. The realm must see its prince alive, and its king. The question hovered like a blade. Rhaegar answered only, alive. Connington accepted the half-truth and stepped back. Then I will see the column ready at dawn. Word galloped ahead of them. At Maidenpool, small folk showered the column with flowers, relief shining through fear. At Duskendale, closed shutters rattled like teeth. Smoke drifted across the King's Road, sweet from burning autumn fields. Refugees trudged southward, possessions tied in blankets. Some cheered, more stared, uncertain who had won. On the fifth day, the Red Keep slate towers reared above the Blackwater rush, banners drooping in listless air. The gate stood open but unguarded, ominous hospitality. Rhaegar crossed the drawbridge flanked by white cloaks, heart hammering. Inside the throne room, torches guttered in empty sconces. Rushes stank of old wine, and worse. Aerys Targaryen sat the Iron Throne cloaked in rags of gold, fingernails grown long and black. His beard tangled with drool, wildfire green glimmered in his eyes. Grand Maester Pycelle bowed beside him, smelling of fear. My father, Rhaegar said, kneeling. The rebel Lord Robert Baratheon is dead. His host shattered. Peace can be forged if we act swiftly. You, Sirwanode. Peace? The king's voice rasped, like parchment tearing. They rose against their rightful lord. Burn them all! Rhaegar's stomach lurched. He had marched to this very moment every night of the long war. Yet still, his mind recoiled. He rose. The realm is ashes enough, no more. Aerys laughed, a wet cough. Soft words, sweet songs, your mother's boy. He leaned forward so springs shrieked under the throne. You would steal my crown? I see it in your traitor's eyes. The King's Guard spread in a silent wall behind Rhaegar. Barristan, Arthur, Luwin, Oswell, Gerald, Jonathan, each sworn to sword and silence. 7 against one old man, and 1,000 jars of wildfire hidden in the belly of the city. Rhaegar bowed his head. I would save your crown, father. Let me. Aerys spat greenish phlegm down the throne steps. Then save it from yourself, Prince of Harps. Go sing your piece to the traitor's bone. Torchlight flickered across rusted blades, jutting from the throne. One caught the king's cheek, and blood trickled black. Rhaegar lifted his gaze and saw madness staring back. No song could drown that madness, no oath contain it. He felt Arthur's presence at his shoulder like a silent verdict. Rhaegar knelt once more, voice steady. Forgive me, father. He drew his sword. Wildfire never lit king's landing that night. Bells rang instead, frantic and bright. The city woke to news that Aerys too had died, slipping upon the throne's razor-shard arm. Whispers claimed the iron itself cut out his heart for the harm he meant. No tongues spoke of swords. Before dawn, Rhaegar was crowned in the dragon pit before what banners remained. Rain poured through broken vaulting, drumming on scales of stone dragons carved long before men forgot how to make them. Rhaegar wore no crown of swords. He chose a simple circlet of pale gold, a promise more than a threat. Elia knelt to him first, her smile fragile and proud. Young Rhaenys toddled forward with a coronet of daisies for her father. Aegon, still in arms, gurgled at the downpour. When the ceremony ended, the new king remained bareheaded in the rain, until every lord had bent the knee or turned away. Some turned away. They would gather in Storm's End and River Run, in Moat Cailin and Oldstones, glancing south with hungry eyes. He felt their absence like missing strings upon his harp. In the queen's apartments that night, Elia settled the children at her breast and watched her husband with questions clouding her warm, dark eyes. Lyanna was the first of them. Rhaegar poured wine. Alive, he answered. North of the neck for now. For now. Elia's fingers toyed with a loose curl. Arthur kept vigil at that tower while you rode to the Trident. He wrote that the wolf girl weakens. Now and then. Rhaegar winced. He fears for her child. Elia closed her own arms around Aegon. Does he? He started to speak, but his throat closed on words too late. Elia's gaze softened. You will keep your promises, she said. Even the ones you made under moonlight and strange songs. But mind this. The realm will bleed again if you do not weave those promises wisely. Rhaegar kissed her forehead, tasting salt. You are my wisdom, he whispered. Be sure of that, she replied. But her smile returned, and with it a strength he had nearly forgotten. Snow began to fall in the Wolfswood before news of Robert's defeat reached Winterfell. Eddard Stark stood upon the battlements while pale flakes melted on his brows. Catelyn's letter fluttered in his hand, the parchment telling him Robert was gone, Lyanna lost or worse, and the dragon now sat king of the realm. Yet it was the wax seal that chilled him deepest. A crowned dragon, 3 heads become one. The North would howl, he knew, but howling solved nothing. He turned to Maester Luwin beside him. Send ravens to White Harbor, the Dreadfort, Deepwood Motte. Tell our bannermen to hold fast. No raid south, none to yo. A wise caution, my lord. Luwin's breath fogged in the air. And Lyanna? Eddard closed his eyes briefly. The king claims she lives. He opened them again, iron gray. I will ride south and learn the truth. The maester bowed. Then, I pray that truth is kinder than rumor. Across the narrow sea, the aftershocks of the Trident rattled thin wine cups and gold-rimmed plates. In Bravos, a gaunt Tywin Lannister sat aboard the flagship, Golden Bow, and studied the slate sea. He had sailed when ravens spoke of dragons at the gates, abandoning siege lines before the winds of fortune shifted utterly. Now they had shifted. His son Jaime, the youngest knight of the Kingsguard, would be almost 18. Which master did the boy serve now? Tywin's gloved fingers drummed the rail. The sea smelled of rot. In Volantis, Oberyn Martell laughed like a man tasting victory. His sister's letters told of peace, but peace could be sharpened into a weapon. Dawn had never bent fully to dragons. Perhaps now, under a new, gentler king, they might lead the dance instead of following. The Red Viper traced a map with 2 fingers, plotting sinuous paths home. Within the Red Keep's solar, parchment mountains grew. Each demanded decision. What lord pardoned, what lord punished, what tax eased, what levy raised. Rhaegar read until candle stubs guttered, until the room smelled of wax and dust. He sought guidance in bright memories. The soft hush of Lyanna's laughter, the steady warmth of Elia's hand. 2 women. 2 promises. 2 halves of something that might resemble peace if he dared risk it. He signed decrees granting amnesty to Stormlords who would bend the knee, safe conduct to Eddard Stark, release of certain river lords held captive by Tywin's siege. When at last he sealed the parchment, he pressed the wax harder than intended. The dragon imprint cut deep. A gentle knock. Varys entered, slippered and silent. "Your Grace, there is a difficulty." Rhaegar's shoulders tightened. "Speak plainly." A number of jars, hidden in the bowels of the city, wildfire prepared at his late majesty's command. The pyromancers cannot find them all. Rhaegar felt cold. "How many?" "Enough to rebirth Valyria beneath our streets," Varys whispered. "The scent of naphtha haunts every tunnel." Rhaegar stood, dawn light bleeding through lattice windows. "Then we will search until the scent is gone. And until then, the city must trust that its king loves his people more than his lineage." He touched the ruby crack above his heart. "I will not be my father's son." Varys bowed so low his bald head gleamed. "Spoken like a song of summer, Your Grace. Let us hope the realm learns the chorus quickly." Weeks trickled by. Peace held, though uneasily. North and south watched one another through frost-covered glass. Rhaegar moved through councils, like a man feeling walls for hidden doors. He established a city watch, free of noble patronage, named Ser Barristan Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, appointed John Connington Hand. Titles that placated some and enraged others. Each dusk he climbed the Tower of the Hand and played his harp beneath leaded windows, silver strings spinning melodies into the sky. Sometimes Elia joined him, sometimes Aegon banged pots in accompaniment, sometimes shadows alone listened. In those moments he felt Lyanna's absence most keenly, like a note suspended but never struck. Her child would be born soon. He wondered which song would soothe a babe of dragon and wolf. On the 50th day after his coronation, word came. Lord Eddard Stark had crossed the neck with 200 riders under white banners. Rhaegar ordered guest rooms prepared, walls hung with Stark sigils beside Targaryen ones, silver hundreds swirling with grey diarrhea. Elia watched servants work, brow furrowed. "Tapestry will not still the North, husband." "No," he said, "but a kingdom must begin somewhere." Ned Stark's arrival felt like winter incarnate invading autumn's last warmth. He dismounted in the courtyard wearing plain grey wool, sword at his hip, eyes fixed on the king. Rhaegar stepped forward first, unhelmed, unarmed. The great court fell silent. "My Lord Stark," he said, "I grieve for your sister's suffering and for your friend Robert's death. The war is done. Will you speak with me as brothers of this realm?" Ned studied him, jaw clenched. At length he inclined his head. "I will speak." They climbed the stone stairs side by side, the hush of the court trailing after like a long cloak. Inside the solar, Ned remained standing. "Lyanna," he said before anything else. Rhaegar met the Northern Lord's glare. "She lives, but there is more. She carries my child." Silence cracked the air. Ned's hand twitched toward his sword hilt. If harm comes, none will, Rhaegar interrupted. I swear by the Seven, and by every dragon dead, she is guarded by knights I trust as my own soul. That trust means little to me. I know. Rhaegar poured wine for both. You may ride to her tomorrow. Judge her safety yourself. Ned accepted the cup, but did not drink. What becomes of her honor? Honor is what men grant her. I would grant her a crown. You have a queen. I have a realm to heal, Rhaegar said softly. And in that realm I will need every alliance, every mercy. A second marriage, blessed by the faith, uniting dragon and wolf, would shatter Dorne. Ned snapped. Unless Dorne chooses compassion over pride, Ilya is kinder than men know. Ned paced to the window, breath clouding the glass. Snowflakes swirled beyond, despite the southern latitude. You gamble with kingdoms, as Robert gambled with dice. Rhaegar set down his cup. No, I seek to end such games. Help me. That night, while Ned Stark's thoughts burned like coals, conspiracies coiled in other corridors. Lord Mace Tyrell, too soft of flesh to don armor, but strong enough to bend knees in profitable directions, met quietly with Lord Paxter Redwine and the High Septon's envoys. They whispered of inheritance laws, Dornish claims, and the convenience of queens who bore frail health. In another wing, Varys slipped through a secret door to listen at the wall of the small council chamber, where John Connington argued bitterly with Grand Maester Pycelle about grain levies. Spies bred in shadows like roaches, and so did plots. A hush near the dragon skulls of the Dark Gallery spoke of Maester Qyburn, recently arrived, offering exotic remedies for northern fevers. Rumor placed gold cloaks on his payroll, yet peace held, threadbare and trembling. In the gray dawn, Ned Stark rode south with Rhaegar's sworn brothers. Arthur Dayne, Oswell Went, and young Lord Hightower. The king watched them pass beneath the dragon gate, holding Aegon against his chest. The prince cooed, reached chubby fingers toward falling leaves. Look well, Rhaegar whispered into wisps of silver dark hair. That is the road upon which the fate of kingdoms rides. Ilya stepped to his side, Rhaenys clutching her skirts. And does your music tell you which fate returns? He kissed her cheek. Only that the song is not ended yet. Hundreds of leagues away, in the Tower of Joy, perched above the red sands of Dorne's northern marches, Lyanna Stark labored through her 7th night of birth pains. White Cloak stood guard on the winding steps. Gerald Hightower, the White Bull, and young Cragan Dondarrion. They heard every cry, breathed every silence that followed too long. Inside, a Dornish midwife prayed to Mother above, while shadows of gods with foreign names slipped through candlelight. Lyanna clenched sweat-slick sheets, wolf hair tangled across her shoulders. Her eyes found Sir Arthur's silhouette in the doorway. Promise me, she whispered when the pain ebbed. Promise me he will be safe. Arthur knelt, sword laid across his knees. On the honor of House Dane Milady, I promise. Thunder growled beyond distant hills. Lyanna drew a breath between clenched teeth and screamed. Life tore through her, small and fierce and dragon-hot, when the midwife lifted the child to the bleeding torch glow. A wail joined the storm. A boy with silver-dark hair, his mother's gray eyes, his fists opened and closed, already grasping for stories not yet written. Lyanna reached, tears silvering her lashes. Ned, she breathed, though her brother stood far away. The newborn blinked at the sound, as though understanding. Then his tiny mouth curved into something like wonder. Outside, dawn broke over the sand, pale and new. The raven that bore news of the child's birth arrived at King's Landing, while Rhaegar held audience with Lord Stannis Baratheon, now Lord of Storms and by default of lineage. Stannis presented a ledger as thick as a maester's Bible, charting every debt Robert owed. His eyes smoldered. My brother's war cost the realm 15,000 dead and half as many maimed, he said. And you stand crowned over their graves. Rhaegar listened politely, though his fingers itched to break the seal on the parchment Varys handed him. If you would speak of graves, Lord Stannis, speak also of the lives spared when I forbade wildfire upon the city. Stannis' jaw clenched. The realm remembers burning more easily than it remembers mercy. Then we shall teach it anew. Rhaegar sliced the wax. As his eyes skimmed the script, his breath caught. A son, Lyanna safe. He closed the letter with trembling hands. Forgive me, Lord Stannis, I have urgent matter. Stannis bowed stiffly. Urgent or not, debt remains. I will hold you to every copper. When the chamber emptied, Rhaegar allowed himself one smile, quick as a shooting star. The realm had gained a prince of both dragon and wolf. Now he must decide what name, what fate, and what fire would forge that child's world. Winter crept southward day by day. Rains turned colder, winds sharper. Small folk complained that a king who sang could not summon sun. In the north, Caustic riders harried Crown's supply wagons, testing Ned Stark's call for patience. In the Reach, Lord Randall Tarley drilled levies with iron discipline, muttering that dragons needed bridles. Along the narrow sea, Braavosi bankers weighed debts and allegiances with equal care. Inside the Red Keep, Elia Martell coughed in the night, soft and wet. Maester Eleazar mixed powders that eased pain but dulled appetite. Rhaegar watched her sleep, pale beneath blankets, and felt fear coil deeper than any assassin's dagger. If she faded, Dorne would blame grief on the wolf girl. And if Dorne rose, so too would the Reach, and beyond them the Stormlands seeking vengeance. He kissed her hand, fragile as a song's last note. Hold with me, he whispered. Hold until I can weave peace. Elias' eyes opened, dark and lucid. Peace is not woven by one thread, she said. Trust your children to help you. Our children are babes. Babes grow, she whispered. Plant the seeds in them now. When Ned Stark returned, his beard flecked with frost, he bore Lyanna's golden dirk and a bundle swaddled in wolfskin. He rode through the mud gate at dawn and asked audience at once. In the throne room, sunlight filtered like pale ale through high windows. Rhaegar descended the dais to meet him halfway. Ned knelt, and when he rose, he placed the bundle in the king's arms. Your son, he said. Lyanna named him Jaehaerys for the conciliator king. Rhaegar peeled back the furs. A face so small and fierce stared up, gray eyes bright with new life. A king's son, a wolf's son. His heart thundered louder than any battle. Where is she? He asked. Resting, Ned said. The birth took strength, but she heals. And you? Ned's gaze flicked to the Iron Throne awaiting above. I saw a promise kept, he answered. I also saw what promise will cost. The North will not kneel easily to a crown that endangers its daughter twice. Rhaegar nodded, cradling the infant. Then we must craft a different crown. That evening, Rhaegar convened a council unlike any before. Lords Baratheon and Stark, Prince Doran Martell, Lord Hoster Tully, frail but shrewd, Tywin Lannister newly disembarked from sea exile, and Varys flitting between candles. They gathered in the Queen's ballroom, a vast chamber once reserved for tourneys under roof, now stripped bare. No dais, no throne, only a single round table built overnight upon Rhaegar's order. Raw pine, planed smooth by castle carpenters whose faces still carried battle scars. The realm cannot be forced into harmony, Rhaegar said as they seated themselves. It must be taught to sing together. Lord Tywin regarded the table's unvarnished grain. Singing lessons may take decades, Your Grace. Then we begin tonight. Rhaegar lifted little Jaehaerys for all to see. This child bears both dragon and wolf. He shall be fostered in Winterfell, under Lord Stark's guardianship, until his 7th name day, then fostered in Sunspear until his 14th. Thus North and South will each raise a prince of the realm. He looked to Aegon asleep in Ilias' arms. Prince Aegon shall spend equal years in Storm's End and Casterly Rock. Tywin's brows inched upward. You would trust my house with a royal heir. I would trust the realm with itself, Rhaegar answered. Doran Martell's thin smile curved. And Princess Rhaenys. Old Town, Rhaegar said, among the books of the Hightower, so that wisdom guides her growth. Rustles of surprise circled the table. A round table indeed, no edge to claim, no sharp corner from which to strike. Rhaegar watched their faces and saw skepticism, calculation, faint glimmers of hope. Stannis Baratheon spoke first. Storm's End will honor your faith, he said, though his tone hinted at ledger books already balancing. Lord Stark nodded next. If the prince is raised beside my sons, the North will see his courage for itself. Tywin Lannister tapped gloved fingers. Courage is well and good. Gold is better. Crown debts must be addressed before any fostering. Rhaegar met his gaze. The Crown will repay its debts, and your house will build a fleet to protect merchants from stepstones, pirates. Interest paid in honor instead of coin. Now is. Tywin's lips pressed thin, but he nodded. No man understood interest better than he. So the council ended not with roaring approval, nor with swords drawn, but with a tentative silence like the hush after a harp string is plucked, waiting to know if the note rings pure. Outside the walls, dusk-cloaked kings landing in indigo. On the black water's bank, an urchin lit a tallow candle atop a pile of driftwood. Another child joined, and another, until a line of candles flickered like stars fallen to earth. They whispered tales of a dragon prince who spared them fire. One girl sang fragments of a song heard through open windows. Silver strings, sorrowful and sweet. Above, unseen jars of wildfire dozed in darkness under cobbles and cellars. Their dream waited only a spark. Yet for that single night, no spark came. Peace, fragile as a newborn's breath, pulsed in the city's heart. Rhaegar stood upon the serpentine balcony of Maegor's Holdfast with Lyanna at his side. New arrived, still pale, wrapped in fur despite the southern air. Elia watched from a carved chair. Rhaenys nestled on her lap, Aegon drowsing against her shoulder. The two women's eyes met across the shadows. Low nod passed between them, heavier than any vow. Below, bells tolled the 7th hour. Rhaegar's harp rested against the balustrade. He lifted it, fingers poised. Lyanna set her hand atop his. Not yet, she whispered. Listen first. So he listened. To river and raven, to distant hammers rebuilding broken gates, to the childish song echoing from the slums. Thin voices trying to catch a melody too grand for their throats. He closed his eyes and let the city's heartbeat guide his own. When at last he drew the first note, it rose quietly, almost shy. Another answered, then another, until the tune wandered starward. Beside him, Lyanna hummed a northern lullaby beneath the strings, and Elias' soft alto joined, weaving Dornish cadence through winter words. 3 voices, 3 lands, yet one song. Below, candles flickered, and a hush fell over cobbled streets, as if every soul paused to breathe in unison. For that moment, the realm was one. In a forgotten crypt beneath the Red Keep, where even Varys seldom crept, wildfire greened the dark, trapped in crystal globes no larger than fists. A rat sniffed a globe, squeaked, and scurried away. Its tail brushed stone. Sparks died unseen. Till peace held by a hair. Far beyond the wall, in the frozen halls of something not quite human. Eyes blue, as cracked glacial ice open. They listened to distant music no living ear could hear, and in that music felt the faintest warmth, the echo of a dragon's heartbeat across centuries. Frost cracked like laughter. The music might warm the world, or lure it to ruin. Time would tell. Months passed. Snowflakes drifted through the capital each dawn, melted by noon, yet each flurry whispered promise of deeper cold. RHAEGAR rode often among small folk, cloak clasped with a single ruby shard. He spoke little, he listened. His council balked at the informality, but the gold cloaks discovered crime dropped wherever the king's pale hair shone. Fear, some said. Respect, argued others. No one agreed on the difference. In the Tower of the Hand, Lyanna recovered, strength returning like sap in spring. She wrote letters north and read volumes south, learning lineage and custom with the hunger of a mind denied freedom too long. Elia walked with her in the gardens when health allowed, offering tales of Dorne's hot winds and cool water nights. By the fish pond they watched the children tumble, Aegon chasing dragonflies, Rhaenys teaching Jaehaerys to clap. Their laughter mingled in the lemon-scented air, bright as banners. Sometimes at dusk, Rhaegar found both women seated together. Conversation paused at his arrival, awkward, then easing. He sensed currents deeper than courtesy, threads tangling, unknotting, tangling again. He dared hope, yet across maps lords still plotted. Balon Greyjoy feasted his captains under kraken-carved beams, whispering of a realm distracted. Walder Frey counted bridges and brides like a miser's coins. In the Vale, young Jon Arryn's widow Lysa nursed her son, jealousy curdling milk. And in Dragonstone, forgotten by most, Queen Rhaella languished under storms, loyal to the memory of a son who had once sung her sorrow away. 1 year after the Trident, a grand progress was planned. The royal family would sail to White Harbor, then ride to Winterfell to name Jaehaerys Prince of Ice and Fire before the Heart Tree's ancient boughs. From there, they would journey down the King's Road, passing through every seat of note, binding wounds with presence and promise. The royal fleet gathered glittering on the black water. Gulls screamed above pennants of red and gold and gray. Rhaegar stood on the Silver Serpent's quarterdeck, wind tugging his cloak, the harp slung over back like a soldier's bow. Elia and Lyanna leaned against the rail, their children clambering like cats between. The fleet moved on a tide both swift and strange. Atop the city walls, small folk waved, some with tears, some with hope, some with fear unshed. Bells rang, cannons of joy. In the hidden tunnels beneath, wildfire slept, its breath quickening. On the riverbank, a man in a hood watched flames dance upon water where sunlight hammered wave crests. He held a single jar of green fire, stolen months before. When the king's ship passed, he bowed his head to pray, whether for blessing or for ruin not even gods could say. Then he hurled the jar. The world split open. Green light devoured blue sky. Sound became a beast clawing the marrow. Heat seared flesh before minds could name it. The silver serpent vanished inside the blossom of wildfire. Above, gulls fell silent. Smoke curled over the river for days, and ash drifted like black snow. Fishermen found ruins charred to bone. Yet some swore they saw a dragon of emerald light rise from the flames and wheel northward before fading. The realm's breath caught. Did its king still live? In the ashes of battlefields long past, prophecy woke hungry. Deep in the gods' wood of Winterfell, a dire wolf howled beneath red leaves. As Ned Stark looked south, clutching letters unopened, fearing both word and silence, Jon Arryn's falcon circled high above the eyrie, restless. In Sunspear, Doran Martell closed his eyes, feeling old wounds. ache anew. And on the Iron Islands, Valen Greyjoy smiled, hearing no king's song upon the wind. Yet on the shore north of Maidenpool, a figure staggered from surf reeking of naphtha and smoke. Silver hair charred at the ends, arms braced around two coughing children whose clothes still smoldered. Behind him limped a woman bearing another babe, her dress half burned, eyes bright with tears and fury and awe. Rhaegar Targaryen fell to his knees upon wet sand. Sea foam hissed over ragged boots. Elia knelt beside him, pressing shaking lips to his blistered hand. Lyanna lowered Jaehaerys to the shore, and the child crawled toward gull feathers caught upon driftwood, laughing as if the world had not burned. The king stared north, smokered sunset blazing over fields yet unseen. The realms still sang, hoarse, broken, but alive. He rose, every muscle screaming, and lifted his harp from wreckage. Only 3 strings remained intact. He plucked one. A note rang, thin but clear. He plucked a second. The echo wavered but endured. The 3rd string snapped in his fingers. Rhaegar smiled through tears. 2 strings will have to suffice, he said. Elia took his arm. Lyanna took the other. Children clustered at their feet. Behind them, green smoke curled like a dying beast. Ahead, the King's Road beckoned, long and winding and brighter, perhaps, than any wildfire's glare. And so they walked, one step, then another, toward a kingdom that still dared to dream of peace. The harp's 2 strings sang to the falling night. Somewhere in that fragile music, hope began again. The tide whispered retreat and return, and retreat again. Soothing charred ankles, as if the sea itself grieved for what wildfire had tried to claim. Rhaegar's party trudged north along a ribbon of damp sand, leaving footprints that filled it once with brine. Gull cries stitched the silence overhead. Every so often the king would pause to lift a child upon his shoulders, or to steady Lyanna when the uneven ground jarred her healing muscles. Elia, swaddled in a borrowed cloak that stank of smoke and tar, walked beside him without complaint, though her breath whistled faintly between ribs, still tender from the blast. They had lost half their escort, 3 supply barges, and nearly their lives. Yet the children, Rhaenys, Aegon, Jaehaerys, sang nonsense songs about silverfish and green stars, untroubled. Before them loomed the broken keel of a fishing smack, cast ashore by a storm the previous spring. Salt bleached its timbers bone white, and anemones crusted the seams like scabs. Rhaegar called halt, helping the women climb the keel's lee where wind slackened. He unstrung what remained of his harp and began tightening new gut strings, cut from sailcloth ropes scavenged along the shore. Music would come again. The realm needed melody more than ever. Arthur Dane, armor blackened but intact, strode down the strand accompanied by Lord Howland Reed, whose reedwood staff raised little spurts of sand with each step. Dane's eyes, darting between horizon and wreckage, hinted at news both urgent and unwelcome. "The small folk of Maidenpool give shelter," he reported once within earshot, "but ravens already wing to King's Landing, to Storm's End, and to the Twins. By dawn, every lord will know dragons bled fire upon the river. The harder tale to tell will be that the dragon survived." Rhaegar answered, still adjusting tuning peg. "Rumor often kills quicker than wildfire." Reed's moss-green cloak fluttered as he bowed low. "My king, Scuts sworn to the phrase have been sighted 2 leagues inland. They count heads then gallop off. If Lord Walder suspects opportunity, he may ride to capture you, or ransom me to whichever faction pays better." Rhaegar finished, smiling without warmth. "Very well. We march tonight. Inland, under moon, through the foothills toward Seaguard. Lord Malister still honors his oaths. Nan Tejian. Elia opened her mouth to protest the strain of night travel, but Rhaegar grazed her fingers with his. She saw the urgency in his eyes and swallowed her protest, replacing it with a wry nod. Lyanna tightened Jaehaerys' wolfskin cloak and rose. "If we must march," she said, "then let us do it before my son decides the sand is his new crib." A new moon cast no light on the woodland paths, so they followed Dane's star-bright sword tip, its polished edge reflecting the faintest glimmer from heaven. Children bundled in makeshift litters, lulled to sleep by the rocking pace. Rhaegar carried his harp slung across his back once more, the weight encouraging and heavy all at once. Crickets hummed, somewhere an owl hooted. Trees dripped from earlier rain, and the droplets struck helms with tiny plinks like distant bells. By the second night watch, Lyanna strode beside the king, gait steady despite fatigue. The hush between them stretched comfortable. "When Sigurd's Maester writes the annals," she said at last, "what name will he give this flight? The Cinder March, perhaps?" Rhaegar's mouth quirked. "Fates often grant poets the last word. I once thought I would be among them, and now I must settle for keeping poets alive long enough to judge me." Lyanna considered that, then touched his elbow. "We live. What matters next is making the living worth the dying." Ahead, Arthur Dane slowed, raising a fist, signal for silence. The column froze. Hoofbeats thudded beyond a stand of alder. Muted voices wafted, thick with Riverland burr, body humor about Frey daughters. Rhaegar signaled Reed to flank right. Dane glided left, dawn drawn but gleam covered beneath a strip of black cloth. Lyanna slipped behind a gnarled oak, blade half unsheathed. Elia huddled over the children, whispering comfort. 3 riders emerged, lantern swaying. Belts of rabbit fur padded their helms, the twins' sigils sewn crookedly to half-cloaks. Rhaegar stepped into their view, hands lifted away from sword belt. "Well met, travelers," he called. The lead rider rhined sharply, lantern revealing a gap-toothed grin. "And who might you be, shining like a ghost on a dark road?" "A minstrel lost in strange woods," Rhaegar answered. "Would you share directions?" The rider's eyes narrowed, noticing polished mail, regal bearing, too many hidden forms in the gloom. "A minstrel with knights for ribs, and ladies for lungs, maybe. Hand over coin, pretty boy, and we'll guide you all the way to the stranger." Dawn's cloth slipped aside as Dane stepped from shadow, pale blade capturing starlight. The brigands bolted, but Oswell's men appeared in rear ranks, hemming them. Brief scuffle, steel flashed, hoofbeats thrashed, and the Frey scouts lay bound, trembling, no blood spill. Rhaegar crouched by the leader. "Tell Lord Walder the dragon he seeks currently protects Riverland roads from his thieves," he murmured. "If he wishes my gratitude, he may send bread and blankets to the small folk near Sigurd, who lost kin on the Trident. If he wishes my wrath, he already knows the path." He stood. "Release them, Arthur." Dane cut ropes. The riders fled into trees without a backwards glance. Lyanna sheathed her dirk. "Mercy may cost us, or buy us more than coin," Rhaegar countered, brushing pine needles from his cloak. Sigurd welcomed them at dawn 3 days later, gulls circling tower tops like heralds. Lord Jason Malister, stoic behind salt-silver whiskers, knelt to his king in the courtyard, while maids rushed to cradle children and wrap the women in warm shawls. Hot stew steamed, casks of mulled wine uncorked, quarters hastily readied. Yet even as hospitality poured forth, ravens launched toward every horizon. News of survival needed wings quicker than rumor's claws. Inside Sigurd's round hall, Rhaegar convened a council of survivors. Maps unfurled over oak tables, scarred by ancient iron-borne axes, candles guttered in draughts from slit windows. King's Landing will descend to chaos once word spreads, Lord Malister warned, finger tapping the capital's mark. Without sight of you, factions will claim you dead. They'll crown pretenders before moon turn. Elias' brother sits Prince of Dorne, Lyanna interjected. Doran may hold South loyal, but Tyrell ambition fills any gap. Reed added, and Northmen doubt dragon promises when no dragon stands before them. Rhaegar listened, eyes tracing roads winding like veins. We ride north still, he decided. White Harbor first, then Winterfell. The realm must witness my body breathing. Malister frowned. Roads swarm with opportunists. Sail may prove safer. No, the king answered softly. Fire-claimed shipmates and loves. Another deck would strangle hearts with dread. We ride. Arthur, rally scouts. Reed, gather marshfolk guides. Jason, provision horses. Elias coughing. Fitz snapped the hall into silence. She waved away concern, but crimson tinged the kerchief at her lips. Rhaegar's jaw tightened. He turned to the maester. She remains here until lungs clear. Rhaenys stays as well to comfort her mother. I take Aegon for now. Yerys rides with Lyanna under northern skies. A symbol of wolf and dragon knit together. Elia started to protest removal of her son, but Rhaegar's gaze implored trust. She nodded, weary, yet resolute. Return him to me whole, she said, and do not forget Seaguard's winds carry words to Sunspear. The northern progress resembled a pilgrimage, more than a royal procession. No trumpets, no caparisoned destriers. Instead, mended carts hauled supplies, and banners remained furled to avoid snipers' arrows. Villages flocked nonetheless, whispering that the Silver Prince walked among them, crownless but alive, passing bowls to beggars, guiding orphans onto wagons bound for safer towns. His touch turned fear to curious hope. Near Fairmarket, a night rain collapsed bridges, flooding low fields. Work gangs toiled knee-deep in mire, cursing fate. Rhaegar waded in regardless, sleeves rolled, shoulder to shoulder with fishermen and hedge knights to heave timbers into place. Dawn found him mud-caked, harp lost to rising water, but the bridge stood. That day men cheered for a king they had seen, soaked and shivering beside them. A bard traveling south jotted verses on damp parchment. No crown upon his silver head, no ruby on his breast. Yet where he treads the broken rise, and widows find their rest. The song spread faster than ravens. Meanwhile, within the Red Keep, Tywin Lannister seized the reins of panic. Grand Maester Pycelle convened peers in the Tower of the Hand, rumors swirling that the king was dead, that the queen and northern concubine conspired, that wildfire fanatics plotted new infernos. Tywin's voice, measured as sharpened steel, cut through. We rule in fact, not rumor. If his grace lives, the realm will know by Lantern Tower when he returns. Until then, we maintain order by law. I assume the mantle of protector of the realm. Stannis Baratheon slammed a gauntlet. You assume too much. The small council chooses the protector, not a self-declared regent. Varys raised delicate hands. My lords, perhaps a triumvirate. Lord Stannis for fleets, Lord Tywin for finances, Prince Doran representing the royal family. Doran sits in Sunspear behind gout-swollen ankles. Tywin growled. He cannot rule King's Landing from the far south. Pycelle wrung his beard, and the High Septon demands immediate investigation into wildfire caches still unaccounted. Confessors found 3 acolytes tortured for locations. They died before speaking. Tywin stiffened. Then we find those jars, before our enemies find them, and finish what the river could not. Balon Greyjoy's Kraken banners unfurled the moment ravens carried tidings of fiery catastrophe. Ironborn longships, Reaver's Kiss, Black Salt, Sea Wraith, swept the western coast, burning Lannisport, fishing hamlets, seizing gold transports bound for Casterly Rock. Sea snows swirling, their lookouts glimpsed no lion sails. Tywin's fleet remained docked, tied by council bickering. Men whispered that Land Kings no longer commanded seas. In the Vale, Lysa Arryn sees similar chaos, retreating within the area's impregnable heights with her sickly son, refusing all calls to muster knights for realm defense. She sent snide missives. When the dragon returns, the moon door will open. No one knew if that offered welcome or doom. At Riverrun, Hoster Tully's health waned, and his heir Edmure weighed uncertain loyalties. Walder Frey visited, smirk carving his lips. A throne that flees once may flee again, he observed. Bridges matter when kings run. Edmure offered careful nods, but ordered double guard at every ford thereafter. North of the Neck, Rhaegar's progress reached White Harbor under a swirl of early snow. Lord Wyman Manderley, vast and velvet-voiced, laid tables groaning with oysters, king crab, and sweet cream cakes shaped like mermaids. Yet conversation sharp as pickled eel cut feast delight. "I feast you, my king, because courtesy demands it," Wyman said between bites. "But my son Wendell died on the Trident beneath Tyrell spears answering Robert's call. Tell me, why should the North trust a dragon who lured him to doom?" Rhaegar set down his spoon. "Your son fought for what he believed true, that justice wore antlered helm. I honored his courage even in war. If you trust nothing else, trust that no man who bleeds believes death cheap." He rose, motioning servants. A chest was lugged forth, its lid opened. Inside lay Wendell's shield, cleaned and lacquered, and beneath, a book copied by royal scribes. The shield I took from the battlefield, intending to see it home. Ah, the book records deeds of every Manderley knight who rode that day, written by survivors of both sides. Let Wendell's name survive in memory, unmarred by politics. None to discern. Wyman's enormous eyes brimmed. He stood, wiped tears, and bowed low. That night he summoned townsfolk to Harbor Square, proclaiming dragon and wolf now kin. Bells rang, tradesmen cheered. In the crowd, Rhaegar strummed a single new string upon a fresh-carved ashwood harp, gifted by Manderley craftsmen. The note carried over icy water, echoing from masts. Winterfell's tower smoked with hearth fires when Rhaegar's column crested the ridge weeks later. Direwolves howled greeting or warning. Snow knifed sideways in gusts so fierce children cried out. Yet banners snapped proudly. Direwolf gray beside Imperial red, flanking Claxon white of King's banner. Ned Stark rode to meet them at the King's Road fork, gray cloak flaring. When Rhaegar dismounted, Ned's grim countenance softened. He embraced Lyanna first, disbelief melting into relief. Then he knelt to Jaehaerys, whose tiny fist clutched carved dragon toy. Only after did he take the king's arms, eyes meeting with old weight. "The gods tested your steel," Ned muttered. "You return tempered. Tempered or brittle, time will prove," Rhaegar said. "But I return with purpose. Let us bind this realm before more cracks appear." Winterfell's great hall overflowed that night. Northern banners whose cloths still smelled of camp smoke hung beside gold Dagons, Dornish sons, trident trout. At high table sat kings and wardens, marsh lords, cranagmen, fierce mountain clans. Mead horns clacked, plates filled with roast aurochs. Yet tension hummed. When the meal finished, Rhaegar rose. Snowflakes drifted through smoke holes above, catching torchlight like falling embers. He spoke without crown or scepter. 7 gods, old gods, drowned god, nameless gods. We are many faiths under one sky. Yet wildfire does not ask what god you name before it devours you. Winter will not ask your lineage before it freezes you. Let us ask ourselves then, do we stand apart until ruin swallows each alone? Or do we stand together and carve a future where our children may argue over lesser things? Games, harvest festivals, lovers, quarrels instead of graveyards. Nibani. Silence followed, deep as well water. Then old Meg Mormont dumped her tankard. "Hey," she growled. "My cubs have seen enough ruin." Great John Umber roared. "Stand with the dragon who bled for bridgefolk." Roars answered. Bread crusts flew. Ned rose, voice a low cut through din. "The king offers more than words. He offers his son." He lifted Jaehaerys to the table edge, the child blinking under torch glow. "This boy shall walk these halls, learn steel at our forge, howl with our pups. In return, the North pledges swords and harvest to the realm." Cheer shook rafters. Even stone hearts warmed. Rhaegar bowed, relief washing through joints like warm broth. Yet while toasts echoed, Varys slipped from shadow near the fire. Parchment tucked inside sleeve. He caught the king's eye, slight shake of bald head. "News. Grave. Pipe." Rhaegar excused himself, following the spider beyond hall. In a quiet anteroom, Varys unfurled scroll. "My agents confirm," he whispered. "Wildfire jar stolen from vault, triggered river blast. We now know who delivered it. Son of a pyromancer, executed by your father. He sold loyalty to faceless masters. Best gold points to the Iron Bank of Bravos, though unproven. Worst caches remain missing. And Tywin's fleet left harbor 2 nights past, bound for the Rhaegar closed eyes. How many jaws? 320, still unaccounted. Enough to scour the capital thrice. He steadied breath, mused. Summon the triumvirate, Tywin, Stannis, Prince Oberyn in Doran's stead. Instruct them. Every jar found or every street drowned in water trenches. Meanwhile, we march south again after the naming. Varys bent, like reed. One more matter. Queen Elia's coughing worsens. Septon Barth's letters speak of shadow upon lungs. Rhaegar's heart knifed. "I ride at dawn. You promised Winterfell naming." Shh. "The boy may be named by his uncle. His father rides." "Nah, him too." Barry said nothing. He simply watched the king hurry back toward torch roar and feast song, a silver shadow threading through joy. The naming, the next morn, dawned under sky, the color of tempered steel. Beneath the heart tree's bloody leaves, Ned Stark held Jaehaerys aloft, dripping snow melt onto infant brow. "I name thee Jaehaerys Snowdragon, Prince of Ice and Fire, Ward of Winterfell, Child of Dragon and Wolf." Children of the Keep shouted approval. Direwolves howled chorus. Rhaegar smiled, though unease gnawed his ribs. As soon as final benediction echoed across Godswood, he donned travel cloak. Lyanna intercepted him near stables. "Elia needs me too," she said. "I ride. The babe will thrive among Starks until we return. You said 2 strings suffice. Dragon and wolf." She mounted before he could argue. Ned handed Rhaegar a pouch of weirwood seeds soaked in sap. "Plant these in the south," he urged. "Let old gods take root beside new. It may remind southern hearts the realm is older than thrones." Rhaegar clasped his arm. "Thank you, brother." Snow flurried as the royal escort rode, leaving twin tracks across white fields, toward uncertain fires. Across the bight, sail banners bearing gray kraken closed upon White Harbor's trade fleet. Lord Wyman's fattest galleon, Merry Merman, went up in orange flame. Yet as iron-born grappling hooks bit, a volley of black-fletched arrows whistled from shoreline. Reeds parted, crannogmen canoes slipping between waves. Howland Reed had anticipated kraken appetite. Their poisoned darts felled raiders, grappling lines cut. Iron men tumbled to frothing sea. One Kraken captain, battered by blowgun barbs, cried, "The bog devils haunt salt waters now." Panic spread. Longships wheeled away. Northern Marsh Alliance held first blood. Word of this defense raced south ahead of Rhaegar's return, bolstering morale yet fueling Greyjoy fury. Balon ordered a grand assault on Seaguard's tower. The one Jason Mallister boasted had never fallen. 20 longships mustered. Aelia lay propped on cushions near Seaguard's sea-facing balcony, sea wind whipping orange curtains. Rhaegar arrived at moonrise, boots echoing marble floors. She turned weakly, smile carving pallid lips. "The poet returns in road dust rather than court silk," she teased. "Dust washes. Your voice is worth 10 courts." He knelt, pressing lips to fevered brow. "The maesters say the blast smoke scorched my lungs, but poppy and patience may mend." Her fingers tangled his. "But your face tells me storms brew beyond my sick room." He recounted wildfire theft, capital peril, Greyjoy raids. Her gaze sharpened despite pain. Then no time for languor. Summoned Dornish sand skiffs, Tyrell grain wagons, Lannister treasuries. Every lord must pay peace's price. She coughed, crimson, flecking kerchief. When realm sees a Martell queen refuse her sickbed to plan defense, maybe they'll match courage. He held her until coughing eased. "Rest," he murmured, "or I will order all maesters to conspire." "You are king," she chided, "not jailer." "Both, when love demands." He kissed knuckles. Seaguard fortress ready for siege. Ironborn sails darkened horizon, drums booming like war harp. Rhaegar's first battle as king without Robert, without dragons of old. Only archers, ballistae, and scraggly conscripts. Lyanna donned brigandine, hair braided back. "I count 20 ships." Dane surveyed through spyglass. "More behind. We hold tower or riverlands bleed." Rhaegar addressed soldiers atop parapet. "Men fear fire they do not know. Let us give Ironborn such fire." He produced vials of wildfire recovered from sunken wreck. Stable when sealed, lethal when freed. Catapults hurl these into enemy decks. Archers ignite pitch arrows that splash. Mallister's men, murmured nerves. Aelia insisted upon balcony vantage. Maester protests ignored. "I will witness," she declared, "or history will misplace truth." The battle erupted as dawn pinked sea. Catapults thumped. Jade streaks arced, smashing upon kraken planks. Emerald gouts roared skyward. Ironborn shrieked as fire climbed rigging like living thing. Some ships turned, but Balon's flagship pressed, boarding planks ready. Rhaegar signaled hidden cove. Canoes of marshmen emerged, paddling swift beneath flame haze. Reed's warriors loosed frogpox bombs, concoctions of swamp rot that burst into stench foul enough to choke reavers inside helms. Disoriented, boarders never reached wall. Melee collapsed into retreat. By noon, 6 longships burned husks. Others fled trailing oars of deserters. Cheers thundered. Aelia sank to chair, tears tracking cheeks. Rhaegar joined her. "The Krakens slink home. Until next tide," she whispered. Yet every victory buys breath. While Seaguard celebrated, Tywin's fleet crushed reaver squadrons at the Shield Islands, Golden Lions reclaiming sea pride. Stannis' royal fleet sailed from Dragonstone to patrol Gullet, forging barrier before capital. Triumvirate found grudging unity under looming threat. Pycelle's alchemists dredged cellars, 30 jars of wildfire unearthed near Flea Bottom, a mad monk guarding them with flaming brand. Under torture he babbled, he built tunnels, more tunnel. City Watch scoured, but labyrinths wove deeper than rat holes. In one such tunnel, a boy named Gendry hammered horseshoes for his master smith when wall cracked, revealing glow. Gendry stared at viscous green slosh inside glass. He remembered stories of burning river. Quietly he mortared wall, heart pounding. Fate sometimes rests on unheard warnings. Winter settled across realm. Ravens grew thick-feathered. Rhaegar convened a great council at Harrenhal, central and symbolic. Towers melted in Aegon's conquest now housed hopes of reforged peace. Lords Tyrell, Stark, Lannister, Baratheon, Martell, Greyjoy invited. Balon accepted, sails white in token of parleys. Grand feast preceded matters. Echoes of past tourney-haunted halls, where once Rhaegar crowned Lyanna queen of love and beauty. That memory hung heavy, but new seats changed charade. Elijah at his right, Lyanna at left, children between, embodiment of reconciliation. The morrow, council gathered in King's Hall, a cavernous chamber where dragon fire had once run molten down walls. Rhaegar took no throne, only stood before hearth. War tore us for a woman's honor, a mad king's fear, ambition of lords, he began. If we repeat those causes, we will burn this realm to ash finer than Harrenhal's walls. I propose a charter of powers, limits on crown levies without vote of great council, right of regions to hold assemblies, ban on wildfire production, save royal license with 3 lord oversight, and establishment of Night's Watch tithe from every region. Nanu Doliot. Murmurs surged. Stannis scowled. Limits weaken crown and puppet. Tyrell countered with honeyed tone. Better puppet than tyrant. Balon slapped table. Teths to some dead wall while Iron Islands starve. Never. Lyanna's voice rang, clear. Dead things move where walls stand, my lords. I have seen frost itself bleed. She spoke of dreams, pale riders, long night. Many scoffed. Some shuddered. Rhaegar unveiled Ned Stark's weirwood seeds. Let each region plant these in its heart. Roots will bind souls deeper than law. Red leaves will remind kings of winters older than pride. He passed seeds along benches. Curiosity replaced scorn. Debate flared 2 days. In break, Elia held gatherings of ladies. Forging bonds through embroidery circles turned policy workshops. Compensation for tithes and trade. Privileges wooed Balon's niece Asha, convincing Ironborn to ratify charter. Tywin secured debt repayment schedule. Tyrell gained exemption for reach grain fleets. Concessions wove tapestry. On final evening, lords affixed seals. The Charter of Harrenhal ratified. Bells rang in shattered towers. Rhaegar, drained, ventured to Godswood stump behind keep, a charred remnant where dragons once roosted. He planted first weirwood seed, covering soil with ash stained by sun. A cold breeze rustled non-existent leaves, yet he sensed whisper. Remember. News of charter spread like spring thaw. Small folk raised toasts, singers composed ballads of dragon wolf king forging peace in ruins. Merchants invested in roads, once war-torn. Even Braavosi bankers softened interest rates, seeing stability. Yet shadow lingered. At night, Elia coughed blood. Maesters brewed rare teas. Oberyn Martell raced from Sunspear bearing Sandsnake physicians. Rhaegar watched vigil beside bed, harp silent. Lyanna brought Rhaenys nightly to sing Dornish lullabies, the girl's voice silver thread weaving mother's dreams. One dawn, Elia awoke clear-eyed. I dreamed of water gardens, she whispered, of children laughing. Rhaegar smiled, tears unshed. She pressed his palm. Promise me you'll finish the Charter's library in dawn. Let knowledge outlast bulbs of fire. I promise. She turned to Lyanna, raised them strong together. Lyanna gripped her hand. Hours later, Elia slipped into sleep from which breath never returned. King and Wolf Bride sat motionless through night until sun-painted walls. Bells tolled across realm for the gentle queen. Dawn went into mourning, yet not rebellion, for her last wish anchored their loyalty. 4 winters later, charter councils flourished. Night's watch rangers reported eerie quiet beyond wall, yet comets green and red flared at night, warnings or omen. Yahari's snow dragon, fostered still with Starks, sparred daily with Robb and Jon Snow, his silver-gray hair whipping in cold wind. Aegon trained with Sir Duncan Tarly at Horn Hill, forging discipline to temper Martell fire. In King's Landing, wildfire caches steadily excavated, yet maps found gaps. Varys whispered that faithless men of Bravos accepted contract, extinguish every jar by any means. Who paid them he could not learn. Perhaps realm itself willed destruction of its nightmares. One jar escaped notice. In Flea Bottom, Gendry guarded secret, planning to carry it north to show a certain Stark bastard, rumored his half-brother. A decade hence, Rhaegar's silver hair streaked with iron, Lyanna beside him crowned queen in white wolf fur. Peace endured, trade prospered, yet watchers on wall reported blue stars in haunted forest. Silent and moving, ravens flew. King convened great council, lords answered call. Old grudges dulled by charter, new alliances grown. Jaehaerys, now tall and keen, knelt for blessings before journeying to Nightfort as envoy. Aegon commanded Southron cavalry, Rhaenys orchestrated spy network rivaling spiders' webs. Before departure north, Rhaegar summoned his children to Red Keep balcony overlooking city that no longer reeked of fear. Lanterns glowed gentle along lanes. Weirwood saplings thrived in sept gardens, crimson leaves rustling like distant applause. My life began again on a burnt riverbank, he told them. 2 strings upon a shattered harp. Today each of you is a new string. Sing bright. Jaehaerys touched the old ashwood harp slung across Rhaegar's back. Will you play us into battle? Rhaegar smiled, eyes glinting Novembers. Into life, my son. Battle is but one verse. He plucked chord. Dragon's roar, wolf's howl, breeze over lemon tree. Music drifted into dusk. Below, Gendry the smith pushed cart through crowd. Wildfire jar swaddled in rags. He paused, hearing harp song, and wondered whether to turn aside, deliver warning, or hide secret until time right. Choice balanced on heartbeat. Far north, ice cracked under weight of ancient footfalls. A horn sounded once, twice, thrice across ghost fields. Snowflakes shimmered green, reflection of a distant dream of fire. White shadows stirred. In the south, lemon blossoms opened under winter sky. Peace, like music, is a breath between storms. The harp still had strings left to play. The wind that carried the king's song across Blackwater Bay had aged, sharpening into a blade that whispered down castle walls and across the narrow sea. Atop the ramparts of the Red Keep, Rhaegar Targaryen leaned on the Merlon beside Lyanna, gray strands now evident amid his silver. Dawn glimmered on the city's weirwoods, saplings no more, trunks thick enough that ravens perched upon the blood-red branches, preening. The air smelled of winter lemons, bred from Dornish grafts that had somehow taken root against all gardeners' predictions. Lyanna traced one pale green leaf, lips curving. It still surprises me that lemons grow here, she said. Rhaegar watched a raven lift into slate skies. They remind the city that impossible things can bloom, given patience and care. Lyanna's gray eyes flicked north, where clouds massed like infantry. Storms gather faster than blossoms. Rhaegar had heard the same tone in her voice on the tourney field years ago, the day he crowned her queen of love and beauty. Then it had been excitement tinged with peril. Now it was caution honed by battles. I know, he admitted. Our scouts report strange lights again at Hardhome. Sardinis malista rites of dead things prowling rivers. Narumtuni, Felici, Delizia ola bush Dosiborsi. Yeharis will have reached the night fort by now. Her breath frosted. Even here, if he sees those lights, he will ride into them. So would any true prince. Rhaegar wrapped his cloak tighter. We taught him to bear hope as a sword, but we did not teach him how heavy it is. We taught him together, Lyanna reminded, pressing his elbow, and Jon Snow rides with him. The sword may be heavy, but 2 hands carry it better. Rhaegar smiled faintly, gripping the parapet. Jon Snow, who should have been a brother to Jaehaerys by blood as well as bond. Ned kept that secret for love of both of them. Secrets bear hearts only so long, Lyanna said softly. They watched gulls wheel. Far below, the docks beat with life. Carpenters caulked hulls, sailors called in 6 languages, and red cloaks of the city watch patrolled with new vigilance. After the last wildfire, cache had been discovered near the dragon pit. That one had been found by a young potboy cleaning cellars. He'd raised alarm instead of cracking the jar, and the city rang bells in his honor for a week. Not every discovery promised such fortune. Beyond the wall, night lasted longer than anywhere in the realm. Its darkness felt solid, the sort you could rest your hand on and find it bitten by frost. Jon Snow shifted his cloak, wolf white trimmed with Night's Watch black, and peered across the glow of the watchfire. Jaehaerys' snow dragon knelt opposite, running a whetstone along Longclaw's sister sword, Frostfire, forged by Winterfell's smith from Valyrian steel, gifted by King Rhaegar after the charter of Harrenhal. The blade gleamed blue in firelight, as though aware of what hunted outside their narrow circle of warmth. Vanished. Jaehaerys repeated, voice tight. 2 rangers. Jon confirmed. Eastwatch found only footprints returning to camp, then nothing. The snow kept their last steps crisp, no drift to hide them. Footprints just stopped. He tossed a chunk of pine into the flames. Sparks burst, like they were plucked into the sky. Jaehaerys sheathed Frostfire. Could be a white bear. Jon shook his head. Bears cannot turn footprints to ghosts. At their backs, a soft voice asked, "Does a prince believe in ghosts?" A girl cloaked in ice-blue fur emerged. Val, the Free Folk ambassador, fostered in Winterfell these last 3 winters. Her hair shimmered silver-white in the aurora, almost matching Jaehaerys'. She crouched, examining the tracks Jon had sketched in snow. This shape is wrong for man, wrong for beast. Old songs say the ice bears no shape once it chooses you. She touched the snow, eyes narrowing. Odor of cold remains. Odor of cold. Jaehaerys asked. Every living thing carries fire. When something without fire passes, it leaves the scent of death. Val straightened. Andalizi, Karwa. We need more torches. Jon grimaced. Torches against an enemy made of night. Better dragon glass. We've quarrels aplenty from Dragonstone deliveries, Jaehaerys reminded him. Aye, Jon swallowed. But will it be enough if the dead march in legions? The wind howled answerless. Arrows clattered along the archery, butts outside Hornhill as Aegon Martell Targaryen quick-stepped, instructors shouting tempo. His hair, black threaded with gold like Dornish night sands, was pulled into a knot. Sweat carved runnels down his cheeks despite the chill. Each arrow struck center. Sir Duncan Tarly nodded approval. You fire well, Duncan said, voice like scraped bark. But a king's son needs more than archery. A king's son must command. Aegon lowered the bow. I lead the maneuvers next moon turn. Under my eye, Duncan corrected. Tomorrow we march against the Marcher Lord volunteers. Simulated siege, 4 days. You will hold command first watch. He narrowed his gaze. Your cousin Quentin Martel joins as envoy. Keep him alive. The prince bowed slightly. My mother used to say quills win wars before arrows. She was right, Duncan admitted. But arrows poke holes in traitors while quills sign pardons. Aegon walked a yard's edge, remembering Elia's cough, remembering her laughter, remembering her still face in the candlelight. He wished he could see the new training ground RHAEGAR and Lyanna had financed. Dustless sand flown north from Dorne so southern troops might keep their footing in snow campaigns. He lifted an arrow again and loosed. It struck the butt dead center, splitting the shaft of his last. Command comes when arrows land in hearts, he whispered. Along the King's road a humble wagon creaked toward the capital. Driver cloaked in rags so ragged they might have belonged to a beggar. Inside a straw-lined compartment, wrapped in old cloth and sealed with pitch, rested a single wildfire jar. Gendry Waters, no longer a mere potboy but a smith with arms thicker than many lords, had chosen the slow road south after hearing rumors that the king himself sought any remaining dogged shadows of wildfire. He had strapped the jar down with iron bands and built a damp sand surround. Still, the green flames sloshed within, whispering. At night, Gendry camped in wayside ruins, forging nails to calm his nerves, hammering overlaying jar's soft gurgle. Each clang reminded him of the life he had known. Iron honest, danger obvious. But this lightless, liquid flame inside the jar was neither honest nor obvious. Its danger hid beneath glass clear as tears. He had almost thrown it into the black water once, but then he imagined a craven finding it later, tossing it amid children for sport. Better the king's hands, he reasoned. Better a dragon who had faced the fire before. In the citadel's silvered hall of glass candles, Archmaester Marwyn rolled up the final codex of the Jade Compendium and murmured a curse. The obsidian candle beside him burned blue-green, smoke curling in serpentine ribbon. Across from him, Maester Samwell Tarly watched, quill trembling over parchment. You see the pattern, Sam, Marwyn rumbled. The same dreams plague every glass candle awake, waves freezing in mid-crash, suns darkening behind wings of ice, wildlings kneeling to a shadow crowned in frost. Even across summer sea, the candles show it. Sam blinked. I see, Archmaester. But, no buts, boy. These are warnings. Marwyn stood, robes aflutter. Write this to the king. The cold is awake. Tell him the Citadel's books confirm weapons. Dragon flame, dragon glass, and king's blood can wound sorcery older than language. Namni, Sam swallowed. Then we best send weapons north. Marwyn smiled, teeth yellow, or bring the king south to forge them. He tapped the candle. The flame rippled images, a silver dragon, a white direwolf, a red spattered harp. Destiny is music, Sam, and the last verse approaches crescendo. Under Glover banners, Galbart Glover guided a company of Northmen through Last River Valley, escorting caravans of grain south toward Moat Cailin, tribute to Rammus Winterfun. Snow whirled so thick his mount snorted steam clouds. Yet at dusk lights flickered across the river, blue-white moats skipping among trees like lanterns, but none swayed with wind. Will-o'-wisps, muttered a pikeman. Aye. Glover dismounted. No wisp is bright. He motioned archers to notch. One arrow flew, vanishing into night. Silence. Then, a screech, like ice faulting. The lights glided closer, revealing gaunt silhouettes of armored dead, eye sockets blazing cerulean. Frost chased their feet, grass petrified. The Northmen froze a heartbeat too long. The first wight sprang the riverbank and ripped a spearman's throat. Blood steamed on snow before freezing into rubies. Glover roared, dragon glass. but only 2 men carried black obsidian daggers. The rest fought with steel that slowed but did not stop. When one obsidian blade pierced a wight's heart, blue fire erupted like shattered glass. The creature collapsed, lifeless once more. The others pressed. Glover slashed, parried, but his sword chipped under unnatural frost. He glimpsed lights beyond. The others, tall and silent, guiding dead like hunters' hounds. He realized with cold certainty this skirmish was not an accident. It was a probe, testing the river road, measuring response. When horn blasts sounded from south flank, Night's Watch outriders under Corin Halfhand, Glover's half-broken line retreated, leaving grain wagons aflame behind them. Dead hands clutched burnt wheat, like mockery of life. The living fled toward Castle Serwyn, hearts beating winter songs. News reached Winterfell 2 days later by Raven, Sansa Stark, Lady of Winterfell and governance under her father's occasional absences, read the scroll, cheeks blanching. She summoned the castle's old council, Maester Luwin, Roderick Castle, and Mega Mormont now returned from Bear Isle. She ordered patrols tripled, ravens dispatched south to the king, east to the Vale, west to the Neck. The harvest stores must be sealed behind iron, she said. If the dead feed on grain, they deprive the living. The chestnut-haired lady looked to her youngest sister, Arya, who had returned from Bravos 10 seasons older and twice as dangerous. You will ride to Seagard with 100 guards, Sansa commanded. Escort the next obsidian shipment north. Arya's smile flickered like a knife. 100 guards may slow me. Then 20, Sansa conceded. But bring it. Our brothers are beyond the wall. Arya's gray eyes gleamed. I remember the path. At King's Landing, Rhaegar convened yet another council in the throne room, though he still refused the Iron Throne whenever possible, conducting business at a long maple table flattened atop simple trestles. Tywin Lannister, Stannis Baratheon, Oberyn Martell, Mace Tyrell, Balon Greyjoy, now gray-bearded but sullen, each assembled beneath the dragon skulls polished bright by servants. Gendry Waters waited outside, wildfire jar hidden in a wooden crate that smelled of damp straw. Rhaegar addressed his lords. Reports of others crossing Last River confirm our worst fears. They threaten not only the north, but the heart of the continent should we fail. I declare a levy, 10,000 spears from each great house, 5,000 archers, 1,000 masons to reinforce the wall. Tywin tapped knuckles. Gold cloaks and rose spears cannot march through knee-deep snow and survive. Winter will kill them before others lift a finger. Oberyn smiled lazily. Then we send them with Dornish sand steeds. Desert horses hold heat. That heat won't last 2 nights, Stannis snapped. We need supply caches every 20 miles. So we build them, Rhaegar said. I have charters signed by all your seals. He unrolled parchment from Marwyn. The Citadel confirms the only weapons sure to kill are dragonglass and dragonflame. He met their eyes. We have no dragons, save metaphor. We have dragonglass, mined in Dragonstone, forged in Winterfell's forges, and we have wildfire. Nad Mauricio, Balon, spat. You'd trust that cursed slime again? Rhaegar's stare chilled. In sealed clay bulbs, wildfire remains stable. We use it only for wall forges, far from civilians. Tywin cleared throat. And if one jar breaks while men sleep, remind us how many perish. We've lost more to ironborn reavings than wildfire, Oberyn said with wry tilt. Balon snarled. Rhaegar raised a hand. Enough. We fight cold with fire, but carefully. He turned as a page ushered Gendry in. This smith boy risked his life to bring a stray jar to me. His caution is example to all. Gendry knelt awkwardly. His eyes found only the king's boots. Rhaegar lifted him up. Rise, Gendry waters and accept my thanks. Tywin's gaze narrowed at the boy's strong jaw. Baratheon Square. What surname? He asked. Waters, Lord Gendry murmured. Stormland bastard, Tywin muttered, interest piqued. He bears Robert's likeness. Rhaegar had seen the same, but said only, blood calls to blood. He addressed Gendry. You will aid Master Hylene in safe disposal of remaining jars. Gendry swallowed. Begging your grace, but I'd rather forge swords than touch that stuff again. Rhaegar nodded. Then forge swords. Dragonglass set hilts to prevent frostbite when swung. We will need thousands. Gendry exhaled relief. That night Rhaegar walked the rookery with Varys. Is the faceless contract ended? He asked quietly. Varys pursed lips. Their last assassin vanished at Maidenpool. My little birds whisper that the subject of the contract was not wildfire jars, but you. I expected as much. Rhaegar paused at the owl's cage, stroking soft feathers. Their blades failed. Perhaps Varys' smile hinted uncertainty, or perhaps they watch, waiting until your death yields greatest chaos. Rhaegar sighed. Then let them watch. I will not flinch. On the wall's frosted rampart, Jaehaerys and Jon stood with Lord Commander Denys, Mallister, and Val. Below them a valley shimmered turquoise, where moonlight struck rime-covered trees. Rangers moved in phalanx, torches spaced evenly. Each carried dragonglass daggers and new glass steel spears, courtesy of Gendry's forges. Frostfire hung at Jaehaerys' hip, Longclaw on June's. Denys Mallister, 70 now, still straight-backed, pointed into the gloom. There, he said. Do you see? Blue sparks floated along the tree line. They flickered like candlelight, but unnatural. No sway, no gust. Silhouettes glided between trunks, too slender, too deliberate. Jaehaerys felt blood roar. Orders? We test. Mallister signaled a horn. Two rangers advanced, drew obsidian blades, and hurled them javelin-style into the night. A shriek echoed, ice cracking. The lights winked out, silhouettes retreating. They test us while we test them, Jon muttered. Then we must rattle their nerves, Val suggested. The old tales say the others fear bright music. She studied Jaehaerys. You carry a harp. Jaehaerys glanced at his pack. A smaller version of his father's ashwood harp, nestled inside. I do. Play at dawn, Val said. Let the wall sing. Mallister's brow furrowed. If it fails, then the dead still fear you no more. Val shrugged. At dawn, Jaehaerys stood atop the Kingsgate Tower in biting wind. He plucked strings, first trembling, then steadier, and tunes of Summer Hall and Starfall wove through frigid air. The melody drifted across the valley, a silver thread in arctic silence. For a heartbeat nothing changed. Then blue motes dimmed as though frost itself flinched. Shadows froze, mid-stride. Across the ice, cracks spiderwebbed, releasing trapped bubbles with thundersnap pops. Rangers gasped. The others retreated, the dead shuffling behind. A hush settled, broken only by harp. Jon let out a breath. Perhaps music truly is a sword, or reminder of fire, Mallister said. His eyes shone wet. Keep playing, Prince. Let them remember we are alive and singing. Rhaegar received the raven hours later, perched in his solar where marbled sunlight slanted. He traced Jaehaerys' terse script. Harp turned the dead. They can be unnerved by memory. He laid the letter beside Marwyn's scroll. Sorcery older than language longs to silence song. He turned to Lyanna. Our son fights with the same weapon that saved me years ago. She smiled. Blood calls to blood. He sighed. I must go north myself. Lyanna's eyes darkened. If you fall, the realm fractures. Not if Charter stands. Aegon rules from the south until I return. She reached, cradling his cheek. Then let me ride too. No, if I do not return, they will need a queen. They will need hope. They will have hope, he whispered. You gave them that when you forgave me, when Elia forgave us both. He kissed her brow, and hope's name is Jaehaerys. Thus the king's northward host assembled, Tyrell archers in green, Lannister knights in crimson, Baratheon lancers whose banners bore new device, a stag and crowned dragon entwined. Dornish skirmishers arrived under Asha Greyjoy's escort, a sign that even the Krakens had bent knee to fighting winter. Free folk allies flooded from shivering sea, some on mammoth-pulled sledges. Armies that once would have torn each other apart now camped under the same sky, bound by frost. Before departure, Rhaegar visited Dragon Pit's collapsed dome, kneeling among rubble. He placed his battered ashwood harp upon cracked stone and struck 3 chords. Dust swirled, sunbeams catching motes like tiny constellations. He whispered to memory. Of Elias' hands, of Lyanna's laughter, of visions that once drove him. 3 heads of the dragon, song of ice and fire. Then he rose, slung the harp across back, and strode to the gate. The procession rolled north, clattering over bridges reinforced by mason legions, through riverlands thawing to mud, into Neck's bog where Reed's people guided them along mossy causeways. Ravens soared overhead with sealed commands. Behind, King's Landing braced under Regent Aegon's measured rule. As they neared the last river, scorched wagon hulks marked Glover's lost grain. The stench of frozen blood lingered. Rhaegar dismounted, touching blackened wheat heads with gloved fingers. This is the price of delay, he murmured. He ordered bonds constructed, wagons repaired. Onward, they marched into flurries that hissed against plate and leather. At Queen's Crown ruins, they met Sansa's convoy bringing obsidian. Arya Stark rode at front, hood shadowing eyes. When she spotted Rhaegar, she nudged her horse forward, dismounting before him. She drew a dagger, hilt carved like a direwolf, blade black as midnight. For you, your grace. She flipped it, offering pommel first. Forged by Mikken in Winterfell's new furnace, quenched in water of Ghost Lake. Rhaegar accepted, feeling its chill. Thank you, Lady Arya. Just Arya. She eyed the massive host. Don't let southern lords command from warm tents. Put them on the ramparts. He smiled. They will earn their hearth fire. On the night they reached Castle Black, Jaehaerys stood upon the gatehouse waiting. Lantern light haloed his silver and gray hair. When he spotted the banners cresting the hill, he felt his chest loosen. A tension he hadn't noticed until it fled. Jon Snow stepped beside him, cloak snapping. They came, Jon said. They came, Jaehaerys echoed. The watch rang bells, wildlings hooted, free folk drummed. Rhaegar rode through the gate in battered, travel-stained armor. By his side, Lyanna's elder brother Brandon resurrected in memory. Ned Stark, still hail! They dismounted. Father and son locked eyes, then embraced. The northern wind carried the cheers far over haunted forest. The war council convened in the shield hall, starlight filtering through ice-rimmed windows. Maps spanned masons' tables. The wall, the rivers, the towers, the caverns rumored beneath fist of the first men. Rhaegar stood at head, voice steady but soft. Our task is not conquest but survival. Burn that into every heart. He assigned Tyrell longbowmen to towers along the wall, Lannister catapults to Castle Black, Baratheon lancers as mobile relief. Free folk would guide flanking raids. Dornish skirmishers, hairy supply for whites. Obsidian caches every half mile. Samwell delivered Marwyn's codex. He read aloud. Others' magic fades under bright dragon flame, or king's blood spilled in bravery. Stannis kindled at that, but Rhaegar raised a hand. We will not sacrifice innocence for sorcery. Courage alone fuels us. Dawn, the wall rang with new music. Smithies forging dragon glass, Mormont's drums, Tyrell horns, Stark war cries, and Jaehaerys harp perched on the battlements, strumming the song first taught by his father. Slow, mournful, resolute. The sound drifted over snowfields, carried by swirling wind to the ears of the watchers in white. Deep in the heart of that darkness, amidst spires of ice and dead pine, the Night's King, or what remained of ancient sorcerer's soul, stood upon a dais carved from glacier glass. Around him 12 lieutenants shifted like living statues, blades crackling with frost. He raised a clawed hand, and the visions his whites saw flooded him. A dragon prince playing harp, torches bright atop a wall of stone, and ancient magic, dragon glass glimmering at arrowhead. The living had remembered old weapons, yet he had learned new ones. From the river assault, he carried a splinter of obsidian in his forearm. It glowed dimly. Pain licked at him, alien after centuries. He plucked it free, flung it. Frost, closed, healed, but knowledge remained. Obsidian stung, yet wildfire devoured. He had seen green flame eating whites and last hearths burning. Wildfire belonged to men. If men fed their fires carelessly, they might burn themselves. He turned to his generals. An unvoiced command rippled. Somewhere south, spies risen from former lives lumbered. One crept through ruined holdfast near Queen's Crown, where a crate of clay jars waited unguarded. Another swam under ice floes at Long Lake, carrying wolves' bones to sow fear. Warfare would be waged not only with ice but with stolen fire. In King's Landing, Regent Aegon listened to Master Haline's frantic report. 3 jars unaccounted since the relocation, Your Grace. Records show a breach at the storehouse wall. None knew. Under me, Aegon's stomach dropped. How long? Perhaps 2 nights. Aegon stood on the balcony overlooking a quiet city. Stars shimmered above rooftops. He pictured 3 jars in wrong hands. Hands may be marching north even now. He turned to Sir Barristan Selmy, still white-cloaked despite years. Send riders, search every wheel trail north of Rosby. Take no chances. Selmy saluted. And my prince? The question unspoken. Would Aegon ride? My duty is here, for now. Aegon's fists clenched. But if the wall falls, no stone in this city will stand. Prepare evacuation plans for the commons. The Red Keep will shelter as many as fits. None. Selmy bowed again. You think the ice giants come this far? I think when winter knocks, every door in Westeros will feel the rattle. Atop the wall, the first full assault began with silence. Hush, so complete that it rang in ears. Snow drifted. Then, like stars extinguishing, the torches along eastern rampart winked out. Flames smothered by gusts half unnatural, half sorcery. Ranger horns sounded 3 notes. They come before second note died mid-breath. Jaehaerys sprinted, Longclaw's sister sword drawn. Ghost. Jones albino Direwolf bounded ahead, teeth bared. Blue eyes ascended the ice stair like candlelit funeral procession. Whites, thousands, climbed rope ladders frozen stiff. Some clawed bare-handed into the wall, nails turning to icicles that fused to ice. Behind them, tall figures strode. Others, armor shimmering with moon silver. One lifted a spear of crystal, frost unfurled from tip like banners. Lannister catapults loosed clay bulbs of wildfire. Green eruptions painted the sky. Whites ignited, shrieking. Yet, the flames dimmed under swirling snow conjured by the others. Fire still consumed, but slower. Yeheres reached the catwalk, harp slung across back. He plucked a cord open-handed, letting sword hands strike strings. The note quavered, lost amid wind. Val's voice carried, louder. He swung the harp forward and struck 3 chords. Sharp, defiant. Sound rippled. Torches along western rampart flared brighter, as though remembering duty. Rangers took heart. Another advanced, eyes twin shards, spear thrusting at John. Frostfire met crystal. The impact sang, sparks of blue and orange scattering. John ducked, drove dragon glass dagger under armor. The other melted to snow and shards of ice. Yet more climbed. Tyrell archers launched obsidian-tipped shafts. Lannisters fought with glass-edged glaives. Still, the dead pushed, bodies piling. From the darkness of the forest, huge shapes lumbered, undead giants with flesh like granite. One hurled a boulder, smashing the West Watch Tower parapet. Men tumbled into abyss, screams swallowed by wind. Rhaegar stood above the king's gate, cloak whipping. His voice rang across the din. Form the dragon. He signaled. Ranks of Dornish spearmen advanced in arrowhead wedge, stark greatswords flanking, Baratheon lancers forming tail. They drove into breach where whites crested. Wildfire bulbs rolled ahead, split under spear thrust, igniting trenches loaded with pine pitch. Green walls roared, forcing the dead to detour. But at center, the Night's King himself approached, gliding across snow like shadow on water. Rhaegar felt cold pierce mail. The ancient creature raised a sword formed of darkness so complete, it devoured starlight. Rhaegar's mind flashed to prophecy. When darkness drinks the dawn, the dragon must bleat song. He unslung the ashwood harp, even as he drew his dagger. The Night's King slashed. Rhaegar parried with obsidian, sparks of frost and black flame erupting. Cold bit his fingers. He stepped back, struck harp, a discordant chord echoing like thunder along the wall. Shadows recoiled. The Night's King paused as though hearing something from far away. Rhaegar pressed, singing a verse, words lost in roar, but melody pure. Each note glowed faint red, streaking into air like fireflies. The others shuddered, whites faltered. Still, the Night's King advanced, greater will forging through music. He thrust. Rhaegar dodged, but crystal blade nicked his forearm. Blood spattered, steaming. The Night's King hissed satisfaction, until Rhaegar's blood touched the harp strings. The notes flared incandescent, ruby bright dot. Lyanna's face flashed before him, Ilias, their children's. With last breath of strength he struck a chord, so fierce chord snapped. Sound exploded. A shockwave of light that raced along wall like sunrise. Ice cracked, towers quaked. The Night's King staggered, frost armor fissuring. Yeheres seized moment, vaulting across parapet, frostfire two-handed. He drove blade through the Night's King's heart. Ice screamed, blue fire burst outward. The ancient lord shattered into wind-driven snow. The others screeched, recoiling, many dissolved, leaving only whisper of frost. Yet battle was not done. The undead giants raged, but Dornish ballista speared them, obsidian bolts exploding into blue flame. Within an hour, the assault broke. The dead retreated north, leaving moaning husks. On walls, snow-slick stone, men collapsed, weeping, alive. Rhaegar collapsed last, blood dripping, hands burned where strings lacerated. Yeheres caught him. "Father, I'm here," Rhaegar whispered, voice shredded. He gripped his son's shoulder. "The song must not end with me." "It won't," Yeheres vowed. South of the wall, a new threat stirred. A white carrying stolen wildfire jars trudged through the neck, guided by will now sundered but not broken. Without the Night's King, the white's path wavered, but purpose remained. Bring men's own fire against them. It reached Moat Kalin by night, jars clinking. Guards mistook it for lost traveler until too late. The white hurled jar into encampment. Green blossom engulfed tents. Screams echoed, but Arya stalked the shadows. She leaped from rampart, Valyrian steel dagger in hand. Gift from Bravos for a debt repaid. She stabbed the white skull. It collapsed, leaving last jar rolling. She dove, smothered it in sand before flame breached, and rolled away coughing. Fire licked her boots, but died. Later, she wrote north. Your enemy tried to turn our tools, but failed. We need better locks. Weeks later, at Winterfell's Godswood, survivors gathered. They interred the fallen beneath weirwood roots, believing red leaves would remember their names. Rhaegar stood among them, arm in sling, ashwood harp clutched by Jaehaerys. Only 3 strings remained. Snow danced lazy spirals. The wall still stood, though cracked. Menders worked day and night stacking ice bricks fused with boiling resin brewed by Samwell's artificers. Ned Stark spoke first. The Night's King is gone, but winter remains. We must seal every road with vigilance. Thoy nodded grimly. Gold will rebuild towers. My house owes the realm that much. Nan, Tristei, Shichisam. Most Mace Tyrell offered seed grain. Balon, one arm in sling from glancing blow of Giant's Club, volunteered longships to ferry supplies. Stannis accepted post as Warden of the North until repairs complete. Little by little, pieces align. Lyanna cradled Rhaegar's healed hand. Is it over? For us, for now, he answered. But one day, more storms will come. Then our children will sing again. He smiled. Jaehaerys stepped forward, harp ready. Rhaegar nodded. Father and son strummed duet. Slow, grieving, resolute. Snow fell thicker, but music warmed even the breath of winter. Soldiers hushed, small folk hushed, even direwolves tilted ears. Above them the aurora unfurled ribbons of green and violet, colors of wildfire and dragon flame, but in the sky they looked gentle. Ghost howled, ravens joined like a chorus, and so ended the War of Frost and Song, or the first chapter, as later maesters named it. The Charter of Harrenhal held, the realm, once splintered by pride, had forged unity in the crucible of darkness. Peace would not last forever, peace never does. But for one season, men and women of 7 kingdoms breathed the same cold air and tasted the same warmth of victory. The echoes of harp strings lingered across snowfields and green fields alike, telling all who heard that impossible things could indeed bloom, even in deepest winter. Some decades hence, bards would sing of 2 notes struck on a riverbank long ago, of 2 strings snapped on a wall of ice, and of 2 hearts, wolf and dragon, beating in a single chest called Westeros. But for now the king and queen walked together beneath weirwood limbs, their footprints filling slowly with snow, while children chased each other through falling flakes, their laughter forging the future one joyous echo at a time.